Hey, how you doing? So we're gonna go ahead and discuss what I think, or just some of my thoughts behind the last few weeks of maxing and take full advantage of this. First and foremost, the original plan I had, and it's by the way, no judgment on this side of things. I've definitely had plenty of me-own moments myself. I just want to explain to my original thoughts. My original thoughts was probably 375, 385. What has it been your single last week? Or yeah, last week. Last week would have been 375, 385. We'll say 380. We'll pick the middle. Next week, 385 to 395. Let's say 390. Pick the middle. Or 490, my bad. And then the second to last week would have been 400. Or sorry, 500. Would have been a 500 attempt. Now, you more than likely would have got it because it's a really beautiful way to progress things, and I think it would have been really nice. But if you didn't get it, we would have still had one more week to make up for and give it one more attempt. With what we're currently left with now, we have 2 weeks, and technically, that would be only a 4-week block. Technically, it'd take 5 full weeks for your body to fully adapt to these singles. So technically, what we could also do, and it's kind of a ace in the hole, kind of ace up your sleeve kind of thing, we could do is, okay, actually, no, fuck that. I'm going to ahead of myself. We're going to explain what I think we should do moving forward for the next 2 weeks for deadlift only. For deadlift only, I'm thinking next week we could be very strict with how we approach things. We'd be very strict and not let our ego or our want to get to 500 take over and stick to 385 to 390. Maybe 395, things are killing it, but 385 to 390 would be my suggestion for next deadlift day. And I'd like to smoke it. I'd like it to be easy, get that confidence up, really nail down the patterns and nail down the form. And then for your final week, going for 500. Now, the one thing that sucks about this is I always like going to the biggest number the second to last week because there's always going to be the complication of what if your nervous system's in a down regulatory phase? What if you're just not there that day and your strength's cut down by 10, 15%? That makes or breaks your lift. So what if that last week we don't get it, though you're capable of it, which is why I always like putting it off to the second last week. But there's only going to be a 4-week long block. So what's nice is kind of the ace in the sleeve, however you want to put it, a backup plan, is that's going to be our main plan. 390 next week, or 490 next week, 500 final week. But if that 500 doesn't work out, you have a shitty Saturday, you don't sleep well, your central nervous system's in a down regulatory phase, we can always extend it one more week, but we make a completely new block, completely. Start planning for all the things that we're going to plan for the getting more towards sports specificity, getting more towards athlete-specific training, dropping a lot of barbell movements, but on a day that makes the most sense, we start off with one more try at 500 sumo deadlift. So that is an option. That's kind of nice. That's an option at this point too, because that would be the 5th week. Still makes sense in terms of a adaptation standpoint. It takes about 5 weeks to fully adapt to something, depending upon genetics. So that's something nice to mention too. But that's my plan for you for sumo deadlift specifically. 390 next week. 490 next week, 500 final week. And if you don't get that 500, though I know you're capable of it, we can always push it out one more week. Change the block still, new block completely, but at a day in the week that makes the most sense, we'll have one more shot, one more sumo deadlift we start a workout with. Now, when it comes to the bench press and the few other lifts, bench press we got 250. I didn't see that lift. I didn't get a video of it. I didn't see it, so I don't know how easy or hard that was. But I think a solid goal for you would just be to get to as high into the 200s as you can. As high into the 200s as you can. I think because we're still in a pretty high calorie surplus, and as long as you keep your nutrition right, there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't continue to gain these last 2 weeks, no matter how hard that rep was. But I'd say for the bench press, next week's going to be 255, 265. Probably go for 260. That'd be a nice and manageable number. And last week, I think 270 to 275. And I think 275 would be a killer goal by the end of this block. And that was kind of the goal I secretly had for you in mind. It's 275. I think it's very manageable, very doable. And I think your bench press form is a spot where you can get there. I think the biggest variable for that is going to be your nutrition, though. When it comes to bench press, nutrition is the biggest variable. Always is, always will be, body weight nutrition. So make sure that we're eating big these last few weeks. Because remember, you're kind of hating it right now. But these last few weeks, you're going to miss these last few weeks, a few months from now. Because it's no more barbell movements, no more maximal loading, hardly. And then lastly, for the squat, I think a really good goal for you would be just to get as high in the 400s as we can. And looking at this here, we obviously hit 405 last week. My plan for you would be to hit two working singles next week. One of those working singles, I want to be a knee sleeve tightness, so it doesn't give you any rebound. So it's a raw squat at 400 pounds. I think I think your original goal was to squat raw 400 pounds, and that's absolutely achievable. You can easily do that. But at the same time, I would like to hit a really crazy number, a number that exceeds your expectations that you ever had of yourself by the end of this. We're not even at the end of this. We're only a few months in, but a even bigger number of something closer to 430 to 440. That would be my end-all, be-all number. Definitely not next week. Next week, I think for a heavily wrapped, a tight wrap squat session, top single, I think around 420 would be a really good goal. I think your actual weight range I would have for you would be between 415 and 425. And then for your raw squat, it's 400. That would be the goal I have for you next week. 495 to 405 is the actual range I would have for you for the raw, for the light wrap. And for the heavy wrap, we go for 415 to 425. And for the final week of this block, I want your squat to be raw 405, so it's going to be 400 to 410, which just light wrap is what I mean by raw. And then for a tight wrap, 430 to 440 would be a number I have in mind for you. And keep in mind, we still haven't got that tight. That wrap I gave you is still about a 7.5 out of 10. So if we went something closer to 9 out of 10, I think you're capable of that now. A few more weeks adaptation, absolutely. So just let me know your thoughts on that. Maybe you want to set your goals a little higher. I could see that possible in the squat. I could see you getting damn close, if not to 450. So that's really nice to think about. But let me know your thoughts on those. Last few notes I have for you in terms of the last few weeks of this block is I want to make sure that we're still pushing things for the back off work. So for example, 3 sets of 3, I still want to be pushing things like in a progressive overload sort of fashion. We're trying to progress and load each week. For the sumo deadlift, for example, we obviously went super fucking light, the 405 for 3 sets of 3, and you gave it a pushing limit. Realistically, it just felt like shit because you just got done doing a few really, really heavy pulls. Next week though, I would like those 3 sets of 3 because keep in mind, you're still getting stronger throughout all of this. So those 3 sets of 3, you're still contributing to your strength adaptations. You're still going to get a hell of a lot stronger. What happens oftentimes is somebody will get done with a peaking block like this with a heavy 3 sets of 3 backloaded. They'll get super fucking strong for them. And a few weeks after their peaking block, they'll fuck around, try single, and they'll hit a way bigger number than they did in the peaking block. That actually happens on an extraordinary amount of time. So you're getting stronger through all this. Those 3 sets of 3 still matter. So I still want you to get amped up and hit some really big numbers for those. And since we'll hit a more manageable, or we'll set more manageable goals for next week's deadlift session, 485 to 490 is your weight range that I want you to hit. Your back off work should be a little bit easier for 3 sets of 3 since we're not going to miss anything. And when you miss something and try multiple times and miss it a few times, it kills you. So I think a load expectation for 3 sets of 3, because keep in mind, it's still going to give you a lot of strength adaptation, so going to be very beneficial for you to push, is going to be something closer to 435 to 455. And I'd like you to go for a pretty big triple PR too. And that's a really good spot to be in. When you can hit manageable enough singles and read your progression well enough to hit a single that's manageable, going up each week, that your body can handle real well, form's getting better, more efficient, and then also hit a triple PR with backload work, that's a good spot to be in. I think you're in a spot where you could do that too. So let's take those triples a little bit harder. Try to hit some triple PRs too, which will be really nice. And then lastly, obviously, go into progressive overload for all the other accessory exercises and whatnot. Really try to push it with the plyo work. And then, like I said, going to make some really big changes next block. So take full advantage of this last few weeks. Eat as much you can, sleep as much you can, because the second we're done with this, we're done. We're avoiding maximal loading for quite some time. Still do a little bit, but it's going to be very much specific to conditioning, sports specificity, and most of the heavy loading is going to take place with very sports-specific movements. You're going to be doing heavy split squats. Heavy barbell overhead press is going to be the closest thing you do to what you're doing now. So, yeah, just enjoy it while you have it. Grass is always greener. You're going to miss it once you're out of it. So, I think that's about it for this week. Let me know if you have any questions. Stay safe out there.